In this video, we're going to look at how to manipulate strings in a basic way. We're going to look at the split, slice, replace, and index methods of the string class. Now, several of those methods use regular expressions, and we actually have a whole another series of videos in this set dealing with regular expressions. So I'm going to just use some very simple, what we call regex expressions to do some splitting up of stuff and slicing and so forth, and that's the case in several of the other basic string videos. Regex could actually do with its own standalone video series. It's such a complex subject. There's entire books written on it. It's kind of like a programming language onto itself. So the first method that we're going to play around here with is the split method. So let's launch into RB and create ourselves a string. So there's some things in there that we can look at. What the slice does, so let me call up another terminal here. Let's do split. There we go. What split does is divides a string into substrings based on a delimiter. And a delimiter is some type of pattern that the Ruby interpreter can look through that string and decide, hey, that's what's splitting this up with is this particular character. So really what you choose your delimiter, how you choose your delimiter is really based on what you're doing with the file or string in this case. Really this is used more like in file where you're manipulating with files and you want to break things up into records or into fields typically. But you might use it for other things where you're just manipulating strings that a user inputs to mess around with. So let's just do a simple split on this string and see what that gets us. So what this returns is each word split up here. So by default you could probably guess that it's using a space as a delimiter because it's getting us the individual words here, and that's a pretty cool tool right off to have, that you can get individual words. Now what did it actually return here? Well, this is an array structure, and we talk about arrays in other videos, but if I was to assign this and say words equal, and now I can go in here and take a look at words, and if I want to look at an individual word I can do that. So I can actually get to the individual words using this array, and I can manipulate it around and mess with it and do whatever I really want to. Now the thing that I talked about at the beginning of this video is that how you use a pattern. Say I want to do this split and use I instead. So I can use an I in here as a splitter, and now it gets us a little bit different pattern going on. It doesn't get rid of the spaces, it gets rid of the I. The delimiter is not going to be included in whatever your array has, so it gets us some interesting thing here. This is the delimiter. When I say that, this is what we're talking about, and it doesn't have to be just a character. Like I said, it can be a whole regular expression that does pattern matching stuff, and we'll see that in that other video series later on regular expressions. So now to the next method is the slice method. So what the slice method does is you give it basically a location inside that string, and it's, or if a range or those types of things, and it's going to give you back just that part of that string that you're asking for. So if we go in here and say slice, and I say 1, 4, so that's a range that I'm giving it there, it's going to return HIS. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You see the fourth one is the space here. And we can tell this is an inclusive, and I do an exclusive range. You can see it chopped off that first portion, or the last portion there. Let's take this down to 0. That should give me the first letters. So you can see it's actually going off the indexing there. Okay, now let's take a look at index. Now index, well, let's look at, we got string here. So if I do string.index and I ask for, say, H, that'll give me the index of the first H. If I do an I, it's going to give me the index of the first I. And again, remember we start at 0, so 0, 1, 2. So that's our index. method, and we can use that to get to the various individual components inside here. And if you want to get to individual letters, I guess you could use the slice method to get in there and deal with the individual letters. Now if we want to go in here and say replace part of this, so let's look at string, make sure it's still there, and let's get rid of the string in here. We could say st replace and then say string, and we just replace the whole string with whatever we put into there. So in other words, it's kind of like just replacing the whole content of that string in one fell swoop. And anything that goes along with that string, we just replaced it out. So it's a pretty simple little tool, but you might find it useful in certain circumstances. So that's a little bit about manipulating strings.